I declare the convocation open.
या कुन्देन्दु तुषारहार धवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रामृता या वीणावर दण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युतशङ्कर प्रभृतिभिः देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निशेष जाड्यापहा.
I draw the attention of the candidates of the doctoral program in management. Mr. Chairperson, I present Orpita Pandey and 14 others who have fulfilled all the requirements for the award of the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and request the Indian Institute of Management Ahmedabad Board of Governors to confer the degree on them.
Members of the Board of Governors, may the degrees be conferred on these candidates.
Yes.
By the authority given to me by the Indian Institute of Management Ahmedabad Board of Governors, I confer on you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, and I charge you that in your life, by word and by deed, you prove yourselves worthy of it.
I draw the attention of the candidates of the 2-year postgraduate program in management. Mr. Chairperson, I present Akash Raj and 404 others who have fulfilled all the requirements for the award of the degree of the Master of Business Administration and request the Indian Institute of Management Ahmedabad Board of Governors to confer the degree on them.
Members of the Board of Governors, may the degree be conferred on these candidates.
Yes.
By the authority given to me by the Indian Institute of Management Ahmedabad Board of Governors, I confer on you the degree of Master of Business Administration, and I charge you that in your life, by word and by deed, you prove yourselves worthy of it.
The Indian Institute of Management Ahmedabad Gold Medal for Scholastic Performance has been awarded to the following candidates of the 2-year postgraduate program in management. Akhil Mangla, Arunab Saxena, Vikas Kumar,
Now I draw the attention of the candidates of the 2-year postgraduate program in food and agribusiness management. Mr. Chairperson, I present Arushi Tiwari and 44 others who have fulfilled all the requirements for the award of the degree of Master of Business Administration, Food and Agribusiness Management, and request the Indian Institute of Management Ahmedabad Board of Governors to confer the degree on them.
Members of the Board of Governors, may the degree be conferred on these candidates.
Yes.
By the authority given to me by the Indian Institute of Management Ahmedabad Board of Governors, I confer on you the degree of Master of Business Administration, Food and Agri-Business Management, and I charge you that in your life, by word and deed, you prove yourselves worthy of it.
Now I draw the attention of the candidates of the full-time one-year postgraduate program in management for executives. Mr. Chairperson, I present Astha Tiwari and 139 others who have fulfilled all the requirements for the award of the degree Master of Business Administration and request the Indian Institute of Management Ahmedabad Board of Governors to confer the degree on them.
Members of the Board of Governors, may the degree be conferred on these candidates
Yes.
by the authority given to me by the Indian Institute of Management Ahmedabad Board of Governors. I confer on you the degree of Master of Business Administration, and I charge you that in your life, by word and by deed, you prove yourselves worthy of it.
The Indian Institute of Management Ahmedabad Gold Medal for Scholastic Performance has been awarded to the following candidate of the full-time one-year postgraduate program in management for executives. Deep K.R. Botra.
Good afternoon, everyone. Class of 2021, Professor Ariel D'Souza, members of the faculty, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to all of you. When Bob Dylan penned the iconic song, Times They Are A-Changing, which became an anthem for change across generations, I don't think even he would have remotely imagined the world that we are living in today. In the last 12 months, we have witnessed and embraced change of an unprecedented magnitude. While we have all been robbed of the energy and intimacy of doing this convocation ceremony at the Louis Vuitton Plaza like every year, I'm sure all of your digital avatars aren't complaining. As political scientist Ivan Krastev put it, and I quote, "It might be only for this weird moment in history, but we cannot deny that we are currently experiencing what it feels like to live in one world," unquote. Hidden behind the stories of loss and valor, agony and awe, ruin and revival is the power of the human spirit, a collective spirit that has enabled us to wrestle this pandemic for over a year now, a spirit that has been tested again and again, but a spirit that will triumph no matter what. The class of 2021 will be like no other before it. The young people of the World War II generation were witness to the massive increases in industrial productivity that came with ramping up automobile, aerospace, and other production to meet the needs of the warriors and the demand boom that came post that. Classes graduating in the dot-com bubble years of 2000, 2001 probably took away lessons about the husbanding of capital and the need to build more sustainable businesses that transformed what it meant to be an internet company. This pandemic has again stimulated innovation as a broad swath of companies and consumers have embraced digitization. In the 4 months of 2021, the startup ecosystem in India added over 10 new unicorns whose mix represents everything from internet, interest in financial services, to business enablers and our need for human connectivity. This class is therefore in a unique position. Having had the ability to take a student's dispassionate view at a world in turmoil, you are now stepping into it to leave your mark as a young leader whose intellectual appreciation of business problems is balanced by a compassionate understanding of the people involved. This convocation ceremony today marks the culmination of a glorious chapter in your lives. This glorious chapter has been defined by 3 hallmark traits that I think are common to all of you. Strong academic record, all-round skills that go beyond the classroom, and of course, the great hunger to succeed. I call this the trinity of records, skills, and attitude. Congratulations on successfully completing chapter 1 of what is going to be the book of your career. Getting to IIMA, completing your course, and finding a marquee job, which is a springboard to new horizons and new opportunities. Today also marks the beginning of an entirely different chapter in your life. Chapter 2. Success in this leg of your career is entirely predicated on the investments you have made, the risks you take, and the learnings you garner over the next 10 years. Today is perhaps a good day to pause and consider what could be that X factor which will make the difference between just coasting along and taking off exponentially in your career and your lives. Let me share my thoughts on what could make that difference. First and foremost, define your North Star. The pandemic and the last 12 months have again shone a spotlight on not just the role of governments, but of societies, companies, and of course, individuals in creating better outcomes for all of us. This is a period of short forecast horizons and amplified ups and downs, and therefore an important time than ever before to define your principles and set your heading. Where do you fit in and what do you want to be known for? Now is a good time to mull over and define the answer. Second, experiment in your 20s. While your North Star is clearly in your sights in the short term, the 20s should be the discovery phase of your next chapter. As a wise businessman once said, risk taking is inherently failure prone. Otherwise, it would have been called sure thing taking. I feel that too many management graduates enter the corporate world with a this is what I want to do attitude. When I say experiment, I don't necessarily mean start your own business or company. Rather, work in a factory, work in a different country, work in diverse sectors, work across unfamiliar functions. The opportunity cost of experimenting rises sharply as you grow in your career. So start early and experiment. Be impulsive, but temper your impulsiveness with creativity and positivity. Be thoughtful of what you want to focus on and what the common thread is that strings together your experiments and your experiences. Which brings me to my next connected point. Third, build your personal flywheel. It was legendary artist Vincent van Gogh who had remarked, great things do not just happen by impulse. They are a succession of small things that are linked together. Your personal flywheel is nothing but your own set of accumulating personal experiences. Think about experiences as units of learning. The more units you can accumulate in a year, the more valuable you become. The sooner you start accumulating, the more you accumulate as you go along, as the power of compounding kicks in. Remember, your ability to learn is elastic by nature. Units of learning should guide your career choices. If you are ever wrestling with a career choice, the defining factor should be the units of learning. Always make a choice that accelerates your own learning curve and improves your understanding of the world. Let me illustrate this point on building a flywheel and experimenting using the example of an unconventional entrepreneur. At the age of 20, he opened the first record shop and turned a millionaire in just 3 years. He went from running a small record shop to starting up a record label to launching music megastores. In his early 30s, when a flight he was set to board got cancelled, he hired a plane, sold tickets, and filled it up with fellow stranded passengers. This experience set in motion the idea for his successful airline business. Aviation was the fount on which his current conglomerate is built, spanning diverse sectors from travel, transport, entertainment, media, and telecom. His name is Richard Branson. He was always restlessly entrepreneurial, something that you too can be even within the boundaries of an organization. Remember, you don't have to be a startup entrepreneur to turbocharge your own flywheel. And finally, add emotion to IQ. I know that all of you have burnt the midnight oil over the last 2 years solving complicated business problems. The reality is that you can't just build businesses with spreadsheets. The most detailed business plans this year unraveled in the face of factory workers falling sick. Supply chains came unstuck as the migrant labor silently powering them retreated to their own communities. Therefore, don't get unidimensional in the way that you think. You need to add other dimensions to your thinking, most importantly, of empathy and of humility. I don't see IQ and EQ as binary qualities, but rather as complementary traits that make a personality wholesome. The irony, perhaps, is that even AI is now starting to hold up a mirror to ourselves. Microsoft's social chat box, Xiaoi's boasts of having both IQ and EQ. It has social skills and understanding of human emotions. It writes music, sings, paints, and has a fine arts degree. Xiaoi's has had a 29-hour conversation with a human being. In total, it has had over 30 billion conversations with over 100 million friends. Just pause and think about it. A chatbot is learning social and cognitive skills to build EQ. The times really are changing. To summarize what I have said, have clarity on your North Star, but then be adventurous and experiment. Use these experiences to build your own flywheel and complement your IQ with EQ. A decade down the line, you will be confronted with the question, how do you measure this journey that kicked off through this virtual convocation ceremony? The chapter 2 that I referred to, what benchmarks should you hold yourself accountable to? Is it the pace of promotions, the salary you draw now, the designation you hold, the companies you float? I think it's a simple answer. You must ask yourself just one question. Did I make a difference? It doesn't matter whether you are a marketeer or a consultant, an entrepreneur or a techie. Have you advanced progress in your field and added to the cumulative repository of knowledge and wisdom? If the answer is yes, then you have done justice to the education that you have received and lived up to the rich legacy of this iconic institution. IIMA isn't just a B school. It's more than just an institution or a badge of honor. It is now a permanent part of you. You have enhanced your life with education. Now enrich it with meaning, purpose, and the thrill of being part of a shared endeavor, the quest for which commences today. Godspeed to all of you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla, Chairman of the Board of Governors, IIMA board members, my faculty colleagues, officers and staff of the Institute, family members and friends of the graduating students, ladies and gentlemen, greetings. Without doubt, it has been a most eventful year. During its course, I have reminisced often as to whether it can be characterized as the most momentous experienced by participants in long-duration programs at the Institute. My limited memory of our institutional history recalls that the PGP batch of 2002 experienced a turn of events that could as well be construed as extraordinary. In 2001, on Republic Day, they experienced an earthquake of 6.9 on the Richter scale. it resulted in the death of more than 20,000 people in our state and injury to more than 150,000. There was damage to many buildings on campus, and students were accommodated in makeshift tents. Then in 2002, riots engulfed the city, smack in the middle of placement season, and many recruiters were reluctant to come to the city for interviews. Faculty and students were intimidated in a peace march outside the gates of the campus. Some of us from the institute had participated in a peace meeting in the Gandhi ashram. The meeting was disrupted by hooligans who proceeded to beat up the participants in the meeting. One person, a photographer covering the event, was hit badly and was bleeding. Near us was a prayer meeting taking place of a group of Gandhians. Despite the mayhem around them, they continued their prayer meeting as though the happenings around them were non-existent. My appeal to some of them to help fetch water for the wounded photographer went without any response. I believe that the Gandhians in that meeting were relying on cues from the overt reaction of others in the group. Every member of the group was unclear as to what has taken place in the nearby peace meeting and as to what the ramifications of the event were. To figure out what course of action to follow, each looked to understand how others are reacting to the situation. But others in the group are doing the same thing. Each then observes purposeful inaction and infers that the placidness of others is due to a belief that they do not perceive the situation as an emergency that requires intervention. Being part of the group has somehow contributed to a lowering of the sense of personal accountability and de-individuated its members. We become indifferent to others' suffering and intervene less when there are others around us who could do so. That is disturbing because it means that even when we agree as to what constitutes wrongdoing or to what requires us to act, in practice, we may not act on that knowledge. The bonds of loyalty to an organization or group makes demands on persons to support each other in every way. Identity cues in the workplace often help employees define and make sense of who they are, and if they come to believe that there is congruence between their values and those of the organization, they develop a strong sense of identity and experience pride to be a part of the organization. Organizations that demonstrate positive treatment towards their employees often have personnel who manifest high levels of commitment and emotional attachment to their workplace. Both identification with an organization and high commitment foster loyalty, and organizations that nurture loyalty tend to have affiliated values such as honesty and benevolence. Their employees demonstrate good citizenship behavior and a strong inclination to help others in the organization. Loyalty activates moral traits which motivates people to behave ethically. And yet, there are instances where we experience the dark side of loyalty, when those who are loyal to an organization act unethically mainly for the benefit of their in-groups. We have many instances of such deviant behavior. Accountants often misrepresent firm performance for the benefit of shareholders and clients, or the corporate elite may collude and engage in fraud. In Enron, for instance, the CFO, CEO, and the auditor, Arthur Andersen, colluded to write unrealized future gains from trading contracts into current income statements, thereby giving the illusion of higher current profits. Troubled operations of the company were transferred to special purpose entities to keep them off Enron's books and make its losses look less alarming than they were. In sports too, we have witnessed unsportsmanlike conduct as widespread doping programs have been uncovered in running, soccer, professional baseball, and cycling. I recall being numbed when one of my favorite sportspersons, Lance Armstrong, was called out for the use of dope in the US Postal cycling team. The team started out with testosterone but soon graduated to the more powerful EPO, erythropoietin, that stimulates the creation of red blood cells, which boost performance by about 5%, or roughly the distance between the first place in the prestigious Tour de France and the middle of the pack. EPO can be detected in the body for a number of hours after being taken, called the glow time. During this time, the cyclist needs to avoid meeting with the dope tester. The team used their cell phones to tip each other off whenever a tester appeared in Girona, the town in northern Spain where the cyclists were training. Cyclists were required to drink large amounts of water or inject themselves with saline solution in order to accelerate the fading of the glow. The team doctor, Michel Ferrari, used small microdoses injected into the vein to help reduce EPO glow time. In the military and police force, there are many instances of loyalty fostering cultures of crime by demanding members' silence to others' transgressions, which sometimes involve the physical abuse of local civilian populations during a deployment. One of my favorite films, titled A Few Good Men, is about such behavior. It is based on events that took place at Guantanamo Bay Naval Base in 1986 and showcases the tension between loyalty and following orders versus being ethical and following one's conscience. One of the Marines who does not match up to his fellow Marines and had poor relations with them attempts to get transferred out of the base by bypassing the chain of command. While the Marines' executive officer advocates the transfer be initiated, the base commander orders that the Marine be trained to become a better Marine. It is suspected instead that a code red order, which is a form of a violent extrajudicial punishment, was issued, and the Marine who put in a request to be transferred was murdered. The two accused Marines, who are loyal to the unit, maintain their silence and claim they were doing the bidding of the base commander, who is eventually skillfully prodded into admitting the truth. They are eventually cleared of murder but are dishonorably discharged for unbecoming conduct. What they did wrong was to fail to defend those who were too weak to fight for themselves. These examples force the realization that when we have salient group affiliations, we are more willing to forgive bad behavior, and group identification can result in unethical action and out-group hostility. Evidently, loyalty not only works to ensure people identify with their groups, but it also induces a fear of exclusion. In the Enron or US Postal Service cycling team case, it is possible that loyalty to the group or organization increased the psychological stakes affiliated with competition and increased the proclivity to act unethically. Competition involves groups in rivalry with each other over scarce resources, and if the stakes involved are high, it has the effect of inducing a proclivity to act unethically, as loyalty primes them to act for the benefit of the group. When the outcome of competition is emphasized and the leadership pushes for obtaining results, loyalists may not hesitate to be dishonest even when they have no instructions to break the rules, as they view it as benefiting the group to whom they owe their loyalty. Their identification with the organization is so high that it blinds them to shady practices. And those at the top of the organizational hierarchy, who are expected to stop wrongdoing, identify more strongly with the organization and are unable to see the unethical practices as being wrong. Dear students, doing what is fair is often in conflict with showing loyalty. In many selection committees at academic institutions and in public organizations, I have witnessed how doing what is fair, promoting an employee, for instance, based on talent and performance, is often in conflict with rewarding loyalty, in this case, promoting a long-standing employee. The downside of loyalty is that it promotes too much of good citizenship behavior where people do not voice their concerns, and that proves detrimental for the group. In today's scenario that has been characterized as a VUCA world, there is an increased imperative for organizations to encourage voice, as it is differences in perspectives, thoughts, and insights that often enable decision makers to avoid blind spots and find creative ways to address problems. I have been fortunate to experience decision making in situations of unexpected twists and turns during my earlier years as a mountaineer. In that world, no matter how much preparation and planning you have done, there is always a change in weather or an unexpected, seemingly unsurmountable rock or ice face, or the thin air, causing a reduction in cognitive functions and the athletic capacity of the body to operate under extreme cold and strong winds. The lesson I learned on an expedition with a team of renowned mountaineers to a 7,385 meter peak, which was at that time the highest unclimbed mountain in the world, was that climbing in big teams, where the decision making is hierarchical and top down, is a mediocre way to approach the task of getting to the summit. I believe that the 1996 fiasco on Mount Everest that got made into a famous film was due to just this error in the design of the organization's method of addressing the tasks required to summit the peak. Rob Hall, the leader of the expedition, had summited Everest 4 times. He is perhaps the most selfless and courageous climber ever, who never gave up in his attempt to save the life of a fellow mountaineer, even though his team at base camp advised him to leave his companion as it was the only chance to save himself. Hall had stressed the importance of obeying his orders to his team, of how his word is absolute law, and that he would not tolerate any discussion whilst the team is on the mountain. He was doing what was the standard thing to do, which is that when decisions are to be executed, there should be nobody compromising the implementation by expressing dissonant views, especially when the leader is experienced. The problem with this was that information vital to making decisions never got aired. For instance, one of the climbers was a pilot with extended experience of deciphering cloud formation. He realized that the wispy clouds he was seeing were thunderclouds, which meant they should head for safety. But since his instruction was to follow decisions and not to have a hand in making them, he did not speak up to the guides. Another climber at an oxygen cylinder dump was informed by a guide that there is no oxygen available. He nevertheless checked and found the cylinders to be full. The guide's regulator had most likely become obstructed with ice, causing him to wrongly conclude the cylinders were empty. Despite realizing the guide was wrong, the climber did not press the point, even though that information was crucial for the safety of those descending the mountain. Hall radioed in at that dump about a need for oxygen and was wrongly informed that they were all empty. Lacking oxygen, he still strived to save the life of a fellow climber in need of assistance, an almost impossible task at that altitude without oxygen supply. He eventually perished. Critical information was never shared, and people did not speak up when it mattered. Volatile and complex situations require critical information for constructive decision making, but the method of running the team deprived them of the benefit of that vital ingredient during life-threatening events. It can, and in this case it did, result in disaster. The issue is important enough that it may be stated bluntly. For organizations to survive turbulence, they require agents who feel free to speak up and offer suggestions without those actions being seen as threats. There are benefits to loyalty as it relates to benevolence and good citizenship behavior. At the same time, as we have seen, it blinds us to disquieting truths. If we want to avoid situations where people just go along with the crowd and do not act on behalf of the organization regardless of the cost, we need people to be just and fair. Being just requires us to prioritize that we safeguard ourselves and the organizations we are part of against the worst possible outcomes. This requires environments where people feel free to offer suggestions and opinions without the fear of being ridiculed or penalized in some form. This is a requirement today as well in our social and political spheres. As we are expounded the virtues of forms of loyalty such as patriotism, we need enabling environments that allow us to be critical of blind adherence to this noble principle when it is used divisively or in a manner that is discriminatory. Our calling should be to act justly, and public institutions should protect us from the fear of reprisal, which is what they have been designed for in the first place. Jimmy Lai correctly stated that fear is the most inexpensive and convenient way of ruling and controlling people. An organization or society that allows people to feel excluded or threatened, and where people do not speak freely and share their thoughts, is one that is caving in from its reach to ensure the greater good of all. I pray, as did our national poet Gurudev, that you work for and live in societies where the head is held high and the mind is without fear. May you be fair and just in your dealings, and may you prosper. And as you do, so may you extend yourself to promote the good of humanity. Congratulations to you, your loved ones and family members, as you step out of here as ambassadors of the Institute. We are already proud of your forthcoming achievements and are anticipating the unique paths you will tread and the achievements under your belt that will be beneficial to you and to humankind. We look forward to your visits to the campus and from learning from the experiences you share with us. You have navigated choppy waters at the Institute over the past 1 year. Go and give out the very best that only you are capable of. Take care and all the very best always to you and your families. Thank you.
I declare the convocation closed.